Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam Live. Ask is the acronym for Always Seek Knowledge. That's one thing I strive. Each one of these episodes that are created is to share with you a little bit of what I've learned and, well, share with you, I guess, my formula, the idea. Always seek knowledge. Ask questions. If it's something you're trying to learn about, something that seems interesting, ask questions. Even if it's something you're really not going to ever do in your life, it's always interesting to just know how things are done, how people think. And, well, it's kind of helped me a little bit understand how the world goes around. Well, let's dive into this episode, which is titled Work Life Balance. Is it a myth or is there truly a reality? Let's get started. Maybe it's not about balance. Maybe it's about rhythm. What if work life balance really wasn't a destination, but it's a dance? It's something we continue to do, not just something we achieve. See, the idea of balance suggests a perfect split that you have work on one side and then you have your free time, personal events, and then you have to run back over and just sort of keep this scale level. But see, life doesn't work that way. It moves in seasons and rhymes and intentional trade offs. Anyone in a relationship can certainly attest to that. I've always been chasing this, and I guess each time I adjusted my career was thinking I was going to enhance this silly thing called work-life balance. I remember my stint as a over-the-road truck driver that I thought, if I could just make a bunch of money in a really short time, that would free up my life. And quite frankly, it didn't. And then I had the idea thereafter that maybe if I got into doing something in my community, so I got into real estate and thought, if I did something that acquired the money, that it would free up the time with the sidebar, right? Because, right, I couldn't just have work and personal. Now I needed to throw another side thing to this, which is just being part of my community. And so now I had three things. So now I'm not balancing. Quite frankly, I'm juggling. I found that really no matter what's going on in life, you have to kind of be aware of things. And that is, well, work. The two most common things I think we all do is work and life. We have our personal life, family life, friend life. We have work. We have side jobs, extra jobs. We might even have a hobby that's kind of considered a job because it gives us a little, extra spending cash. Whatever it is, you're really sort of dancing around these things. You're not really balancing them out. And I mean, if you've ever seen a juggler, any three things, whether it's knives, flaming somethings, just general tennis balls, whatever it is, if you notice they get a rhythm. And if you notice they're constantly just watching one point when they're juggling, because as long as each item they're juggling, and almost no matter how many items they're tossing, well, I mean within their reason, but you could have 3 to 5 obstacles that you're juggling. And if you notice, they're constantly just looking at one spot. And as long as each one of those items make it to that location, it seems like everything else is the same. And I think that's a little bit of how we have to look at this is that if you focus on one thing that is kind of the glue to your work and your life and your hobbies? And what's the one common thing, person, or a place, or whatever it is that if you are keeping your eye on that and know that that is your constant, then at that point you you can find that rhythm. But if you're over here and taking care of life, and you're over here taking care of work, and then you're over here taking care of something else, then you're constantly kind of pivoting around, and that will get exhausting. That will equal burnout. I'm almost certain of that. But if you can find that one focal point, and maybe it's your partner in life, and you go to them daily, weekly, and just check in and say, hey, where am I at? Um, where are we at? And it again, it's not the inquisition, if you will, but it's just that check in and understanding. Maybe it's that weekly date night where you just check in and get that feel, and you get that resurge of energy. You get the feedback from your partner that is those subtle little hints that say things are out of alignment. Maybe it's the check in at work with your boss, and you know that that is a pivotal part. So as you're checking in with those at work, or maybe you're running the business and you're checking in with everyone, and as long as that business is solid, everything else is equal. Does this make sense? Have that one focal point, focus on that, and everything else will align. Now, keep in mind, I don't want you to focus on a non-focal point, because you'll be checking that things are in alignment when, quite frankly, they're not. And we've talked about this before, but you really have to be humble. You have to accept some feedback and be willing to make those adjustments too. Let me really caveat by saying, don't be headstrong and demand that everything be on point and on a line. Be able to make those small adjustments. It's not perfect, but it can be wonderful. I say all of this to you because, well, quite frankly, there's several instances where things did get out of line, where I focused a lot on work and kind of forgot the home life. And then I came back to the home life to sort of not focus on work, and then kind of gearing towards the wrong things, such as, like vacation. I really started getting into a mode where I deserved a vacation. So once a year, I would just unplug for a week and take a vacation. And it's great. But understand all of the things that occur when you do this. And I would find myself annually going through this cycle. I chuckle and smile when I say annually, because I actually enjoyed the vacation and thought, I deserve to do more. So I started implementing more and more vacations into my life. However, the vicious cycle I got into was taking time off got frustrating, because when I came back, the world was a mess. I spent lots of time putting the world back together again, getting things the way I thought was perfect, only to want to go on vacation again. And you see the cycle. And so then I resented taking time off, because it was like, this thing's disturbing my life, when actually it truly was helping me. I just, again, you got to find that balance. And once you have that balance, you you can make those small, subtle changes. You cannot be upset at not coming back to that perfect world. And or kind of what I learned was to set yourself up for success. So having an assistant, having that extra person, instead of taking something on that you have to, well, sit for the week, even though you were on vacation, I would just delegate it to somebody and say, here you go, it's your baby, you run with it. And I would work a little harder through the year to ensure that I wasn't, especially in commission sales, that I wasn't really, that stuck to need that particular sale in order to make my life better. Does that make sense? So be humble and find the balance. And wear some really good dancing shoes, by the way. Comfort is key. Well, I promise in this episode that we'll unpack the truth behind work life balance. We'll explore the myths that keep people stuck, offer tools to design, well, a life that flows with purpose and not pressure. So let's get into it. Part one, the myth of perfect balance. Many people believe the perfect balance is that you should give 50-50, kind of as we talked about earlier, 50 to work, 50 to life, every day. Well, that success kind of means that you're always on, that you're always in that mode. And well, you can't be all the time. Certain things are just going to take precedence. They're going to take more of your energy. As I mentioned before, part of that or part of being organized is going to be a way to get away from overwhelm, where you're not overburdened. And it's a learning curve. Each one of us. I don't have all the secrets, and certainly what I'm sharing with you today has been years and years of, well, just acclimating and adjusting. So I'm trying to sort of shorten the curve a little bit for you, but you still have to do some work on your own. The reality, balance is not static. It's seasonal. It's also value based, right? I mean, what do you value? If your home life is more valuable to you than work life, well, then you're probably looking at that 70-30 split, right? Trying to balance everything perfect, well, it often leads to guilt. And like I said, I was upset that when I stepped away from something and I came back, that things just weren't the way they should be, or something didn't go exactly as I perceived it should have happened. And then I was kind of upset that I left it in the hands of someone that, well, wasn't me. Like I said, it's a very humbling exercise to be able to step back from something and to be able to give something else a little bit more of a percentage than what you normally feel you should give. And that's tough. It's tough, especially if it's your business and you call the shots, as they say, and everything kind of runs on your command, if you will, to step away and let someone else who I would imagine is quite capable of being in that position on your behalf. But that being said, be humble enough to let them take that role and demonstrate for you that they can do it. And of course, always leave the caveat, leave the door open that says, man, if something really tragic happens, call me. We can talk it over the phone. I can help you come to a conclusion. Don't feel like you need to make a decision that's going to risk the business. I come back and, well, the building's on fire. Certain things certainly can take your attention. Statistically speaking, 77% of professionals report feeling burned out, even when working from home, right? We discovered as a society that working from home is actually pretty beneficial and quite relaxing. And you don't have the overwhelm of the office. I recall in my business, I would show up early just because, and not that the places I worked were toxic, but I just wasn't even into the office drama. I really didn't care. I wasn't into hanging out at the office cooler and understanding anything. And quite frankly, it was the market outside of my office is what I paid more attention to, and or who was getting listings and who wasn't, who was selling and who wasn't, and what were they doing? Was it, their hard work in the shadows that were bringing sales? Or did I happen to catch a client of mine share a flyer with me that said, oh, I got this from so-and-so. This is really a nice flyer. Do you do this? In consideration for selling a home. So it was stuff like that that I was paying attention to, not really what was going on in the office. And like I said, with all credibility to where I worked, most places didn't have that kind of drama, which is why I worked at those establishments. Part two, let's talk about what actually works. Replace balance with boundaries is your first step. Not equal hours, but protected energy. If it's a moment where you have to give a little extra at work, but you just know the weekend is coming up or your time off is coming up, and you know that, well, there's a family event that you really have to be there and participate with, I feel like it's fair to you and your employer and yourself, if you're self-employed, to maybe dial back that last day. If you're not quite tuned and dialed in at this point in your life, which I imagine you should be, quite frankly. But if you're not, dial back a little bit to go to what's important and make sure that you have the energy for that home life, that you're able to give that extra, that 70% to your home life. But let that be a lesson for you to exercise stamina and having that little reserve of energy that, quite frankly, you're able to give 150% at work. And you're able to come home and give 150% there. Now, notice I said 150%. That is of yourself. That is of your energy. That is the muscle that you have developed, that you are participating of yourself. Keep in mind, still didn't say anything about the 70-30 split. You can certainly give a little bit more at home, but I'm saying your internal energy, your actions in this endeavor, honestly have to be at 150% all the time. You know, don't necessarily shortchange your employer by slowing down or yourself by slowing down, only to then have to speed up. If you build yourself up to operate at a certain RPM, speaking of cars and engines, and if you're sort of operating at that higher RPM level, well, you're still not taking something away. You're operating, you're just a little bit more focused on one thing than the other. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, and I hope that makes sense. Identify the seasons that are in your life. Are you building? Are you restoring? Are you launching? Or possibly are you recovering? Understanding the seasons in your life is also going to help you to maintain that 150% as well as to balance out. Because quite frankly, if you're in a recovery mode and you maybe have suffered from burnout and you're like me, have asked those questions, what is this all about, in frustration? Well, your 70% can go either way. In my case, I really devoted it to my business because I was recovering. And quite frankly, I didn't have a family, but I think if I did have a family in this case, my 70% would have gone to the family because I would have focused more on what was important, what life was all about, why was I doing what I was doing? You know, my income generating activity, understanding that I was doing it for the family and spending a little bit more time around them would certainly harness that drive that I needed to do more to create the income to support the family as well as myself, to be able to offer that free and available time to spend with them. But that time of rebuilding and recovery and nurturing spent with the family reminds you of what's really important. Like I said, myself, at the time, I didn't really have a tight knit family, so I focused on my business. It was about developing, growing, creating something that, well, was going to stand the test of time, be established for when that family was around me. I say I didn't have family is they weren't directly my family. Kind of married into a fairly large family at that time. And so I had, well, the peripheral family. And what I learned was important was being able to have that free week or several weeks throughout the year. So I focused on my business to make sure that the 30% that I did spend with them was absolute quality time, that they got 150% of my attention. Again, does that make sense? I hope it does. Setting yourself up for what is important then follows through with that second part. And again, you have to understand if you're building something, it's going to take time. I remember building my first real estate office. I mean, I was up in the morning and going to bed all about that office, about every single thing about that office. I remember meeting with my partners that helped build it with me, and it was just constantly a daily thing. And quite frankly, it was frustrating because it was sort of that third item I was juggling because I had my home life and then I had my real estate business and now I was owning a real estate business. So I was juggling three things. Got a little interesting. I did find myself eventually dissolving that company and going back to just listing and selling. So it limited the items I was juggling. I can't say life was interesting at that time, and the market certainly was free spirited. If you remember the crash of '08, so that was probably a third item in the juggling event is just constantly watching the market and reading, what you needed to do and how to pivot almost on a daily basis. Anyway, I digress. What I'm sharing with you is that just understand where you're at. And if you're just starting something out, it's going to take some of your attention. Be humble enough to realize it's taking your attention and be strong enough to realize that after a period of time, you're going to sacrifice that attention and go back to what's important, which would be your family. Honestly, why you're doing what you're doing is to help and support them. So again, it's not a 50-50, and it doesn't have to be balanced at the end of the day. It's not like a checkbook. You may dedicate a little bit more time to your business for a certain couple of months, but once you get up and rolling, realize that it doesn't need your hands-on effect anymore, and that you can certainly pivot back to the important things in your life, which is your family. And again, understanding your seasons is that, for instance, in real estate, it seemed like the month of December was always slow. Once in a while, you'd get that client that, well, needed to buy a home just to balance the books at the end of the year or to liquidate some money before it came into a new year regarding taxes and tax season. So December was usually kind of slow, and with the holidays cornered that particular month, that a lot of people were already busy with other things. So I found that was kind of the best time to slow down, recover, plan for the year, build some strategies. If I was going to redo a system, that was the best time to do it because I wasn't in the middle of heavy transactions like I would be in the summer. So understanding the seasons of your life and your business. Maybe there's certain times of the year where you just have an enormous amount of energy. Maybe if you do something outside and you have more daylight hours as we get in the springtime, maybe that's the time where you feel that's best to launch something because you're outside and can do what you're doing. Again, understand the seasons of your life and to dance with those, as well as your energy. Keep in mind, if you're having issues with your energy, is it a health issue? Is it a mental issue? If you don't see yourself energetic, dive into that and understand why. Because quite frankly, 150% isn't that hard to participate. And especially once you get there and realize that 150% is kind of sustainable and manageable, well, not only does that allow you to stay kind of ahead of the game and pivot, but I find it's slightly healthier to be that way rather than the ebbs and flows of energy. Does that make sense? I'm not saying run 200 miles an hour. I'm saying find that little higher rate that allows you to give a little bit more than the next person, which is also a great key for success, by the way. But if you can sustain at that little higher rhythm for longer periods of time, well, that's keeping yourself healthy, keeping yourself up there. Again, not an extreme, but keeping yourself up there and maintaining that in everything you do, not working a whole lot and then having to relax because you're exhausted. Learn to find that energy in your life. Remember, design around your values. What matters most? What matters most to you in general? Meaning, is it your family? That's your number one factor? Focus on that. Is it a monthly thing? Focus on that. Again, understanding the seasons of your life and your business. If it's the daylight option, utilize the daylight when you have it, because at certain times of the year, you're not going to have it. If it's again, with family, when when children are not in school, uh, traditionally in the summertime, we'll know that you're probably going to seek more free time then because they have free time. So those other months of the year, you want to be doubling down. And again, like I mentioned, having that slightly higher operational rhythm, well, while you're working to sustain for your family through those longer months and then those 3 months that, well, the kids are off school, for example, you also want to be able to maintain that same energy level with them. No one, let me be clear, no one should sacrifice anything. You shouldn't work real hard and then only give your children 50%. You shouldn't be with your family and then only give your business 50%. Start finding, ask entrepreneurs. They will tell you out there. They operate at 125 to 150% constantly. It's their energy level. It's where they're at. And like I said, it's not something you're just going to wake up tomorrow and do. You get trained to do that. You build up that stamina to do that. I'm also not saying that you should get into the habit of having anything extra in your life to build that up. This is just natural. It's just natural. Okay, maybe some vitamins, supplements, stuff like that, but it's natural. It's feeding your already natural ability to maintain at that certain level of energy. It's sustainable. I'm telling you, there's a lot of people doing it. And once you're there and you find that comfort zone of being there, you'll find it's really not that hard to sustain and be there. And I think when you do relax a little bit and bring yourself down to about 100 to 95%, you're eager to go back to that 125 because you found comfort there. But you also find that you're gaining a little bit more energy at 95 to get back to that 125 quite quickly. And it's not an ebb and flow like you think. Whereas if you're at 100% and you go to 50 and then try to find 100% again, that's a pretty drastic swing. And you will burn yourself out trying to find that equilibrium. But if you can maintain that 125, and if you're really a go-getter, you're at 150, life is a little better. I can't stress that more. But remember, protect what's first in your life. It's your family. You're giving it 70% at 125. If it's your business, you're giving that 70. It's up to you. But the practice is you want to blend over balance. And you can really kind of mesh this into your life where maybe you get energy from your family. and this is where, again, that 125% comes in, is say you get really energetic with your kids. You see the life through the eyes of youth, or conversations with your kids spark that, just that curiosity, that interest in life. And in your business, that helps you um, stay, I guess, young at heart, maybe is a good term. And you find that energy in that activity with your children. Utilize that. Again, we're maintaining 125 is after you spend time with your kids and it's bedtime. Don't go to bed. Take that energy and maybe put it to your business a little bit. Remember, it's a dance. And you may find that that family time gives you the creative juices, if you will, to go do something innovative because you're thinking a little bit with the heart and mind of a child. Utilize these things. You can weave them into life. Also, remember self care. If there's a certain activity that helps you relax, well, integrate it into your life. So if there is something that is, well, exhausting or something that is stressful, I don't like to always say work because I think sometimes family is stressful, but just so that we're all on the same page, let's just say that work events are a little stressful for you. Maybe you want to plan an hour of some kind of yoga or stretching or a meditative class or something on your way home and incorporate that so that you're decompressing whatever stress that you may be encountering at work, and then go home. Remember, you're decompressing and maintaining your energy, but now you're coming to your family, which is your 70%, and you want to come to them at 125%. You can work these things in. Don't skip that stretching or meditating session because you need to get home for something important, because quite frankly, you're giving them, dare I say, the worst of you. So again, some of this can be balanced, and maybe it's just something as simple as maybe getting home and taking a walk in the park if it's nearby your home, or just going to a space in your home and decompressing, and just having that hour of your time to kind of flatten out the sharp edges that work might have left on you, or whatever your daily activity is. But something to always remember to prepare and self-care for those next events, and start putting these into your daily habits. I feel like I'm bringing up new things, but if you've listened to any of the other episodes, I'm always talking about your health. I'm always talking about creating good habits. So that's why I feel like it's a little weird to be talking about this again, because I think we know. But again, already having that good habit and allowing those transitions to take place, well, that's part of the work-life balance. It's part of the flow. And again, it's not 50-50, but it's part of what sort of separates, if you will, the work-life situation. And it's a dance, right? Sometimes you're waltzing, sometimes you're doing the tango, sometimes it's just a slow dance. Whatever it is, embrace it and do it, and have the energy until the music stops, quite frankly. Your work-life rhythm tools. Let's review those here. Part 3. Time blocking with intention. Remember, some things don't require the entire day. And if there's a project, say at home or work, that's going to require more than, say, an hour, well, divide it up a little bit. And don't try to build Rome in a day. Set your non-negotiables. Remember, with these hardcore habits that you have in place, protect your hours and know that certain things just, well, you can't sway from because they're part of your core and they're part of what's helping you maintain your 125. So to me, they're just non-negotiable. And like I said, you want to have some of those little micro reboots as well. Something that, yeah, it's okay to dive down to about 95%, but you're going to feel a little like you're short. And so you're going to want to get back to that 125. And I found that through what I call my daily resets, which is to stop, slow down, have a meditative session, and just forget about the day and almost like unplug and realize that, well, nothing matters. I I believe it was one of my mentor followers um, that I've listened to. I think Wayne Dyer spoke about it, and another gentleman, but just unplug and through those meditative practices, just understand that there's no you, you're in no place, and you're not sitting in a chair. And wrap your mind around that for a minute. Just unplug from it all and just realize you're not here, you're not in a chair, and you're not on the planet. And dial yourself back, right? And just like let things come to a standstill and then get back into motion. I found that hugely helpful when going through many of the trials and stresses in my life. Is just to unplug and realize they're there, but they're not there. They're not a part of me. I am the captain of the ship, if you will. I'm steering this vessel. And if I choose to not touch the controls for a moment, it's okay. The vessel's not going anywhere, but where my last command left it. And remember, set yourself up with a win-win schedule. Like I said, have your boundaries and know that maybe family energizes you, or if family doesn't energize you, then know that you need to then immediately plan an activity that's going to energize you. And maybe that's a self-care, maybe that's watching a sports event, whatever it is that kind of gets you back up to speed. Remember, you need to do that. And then get back to the business and keep this ebb and flow very tight, very tight. Family work, a little extra, but whatever it is, you want to really keep that timeline tight and have time blocks, as I mentioned. And by keeping all of that just really tight, you're not walking a high wire. I don't want you to picture that. I'm saying keep your schedule so tight that there's not other things that can now become distracting, where all of a sudden you're doing something and you get completely out of touch that either depletes all of your energy and you're starting at zero, or something that you use too much energy because you kind of went all in and then you're like, wow, I'm exhausted. I need to take a day off and reboot. If something is taking that much energy from you, consider, is it a beneficial event? And as well, how long do you have to do that for sustainability? If it's something where maybe it's a season, know that, practice that season, but know as soon as that season is up that you're going to stop doing it, because that will create burnout as well. In closing, balance is a myth if you think it means equal output. I hope that this episode has explained that to you. I know we talked about a lot, but work-life rhythm is possible when guided by values, energy, and timing. Your schedule isn't a to-do list, it's a value map. So knowing what matters and putting it in position of how it most matters in your life, that's how you can navigate the waters of this so-called thing of work-life situation. Again, it's not a balance. I invite you to download the Work-Life Rhythm Tracker. This will help audit your current rhythm and build your non-negotiables. And if you'd like to, share your rhythm with others under hashtag my work life flow at Ask Adam Live. Balance isn't about having it all. It's about honoring what matters most right now. Build your rhythm and life becomes something you can actually dance with. I hope you've enjoyed this most excellent episode and that you're going to seek ways to balance your life for the best. Now let us all go out and make it a great day.